Keep the mood high,
Yeah,
Um,
for real.
you ever heard of Snarky Puppy?
No, I have not.
Yeah, you should look them up, bro. Really dope jazz band. They do fusion, so they mix like different genres with jazz. Um,
What'd you say, Snarky Puppies?
Singular.
Snarky Puppies. I'm gonna look them up. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being on time, y'all. Thanks for rolling in. Um, I appreciate everybody. So today we're talking about timelines again. Today is February 4th, and what we are reading today is pages 246. I'm sorry, February 3rd. Today's February 3rd, and we're reading 246 to 249 in our collective courage books. And I'm going to start off with a section from Jackson Rising, which is a book about Cooperation Jackson in Mississippi. So it starts with this: the only way we are going to come anywhere close to attaining anything like the utopia these technologies promise is to democratize and subject them to social production for the benefit of all, rather than continuing to allow them to be controlled and appropriated by the few. The democratization of the technologies of the third and fourth industrial revolutions, which we denote as tech democracy, is one of the primary demands and areas of focus of Cooperation Jackson. We struggle with tech democracy first and foremost by educating our members and the general public about the promises and perils of the technology so that people can make informed decisions. Our next course of action is self organization to acquire as much of this technology as we can with the explicit purpose of controlling these means of production and utilizing them to the direct benefit of our organization and our community. We call this self organization community production. And to this end, we are currently building our own center for community production. All right, so I wanted to read that, to continue this conversation and think about the future in terms of the different technologies that are growing and influencing our lives. So, what was your first memory of, technology? Like what was when you were younger? Like what was your favorite thing to interact with? Was it, video games? Was it computer games? I'll start. So mine was um, I was very amazed at how CDs worked. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I first like put in a CD like in my portable CD player. If y'all remember having those, um, I was like, how does this shiny part like, make it so the music comes through? Like it blew my mind. You know what I mean? And I remember tapes. My mom had a bunch of tapes, and I'm like, what is this old technology? You know what I'm saying? It's all about CDs, and then and then after CDs, we had the MP3 player, which also blew my mind, and then that was iPods and all of that. So that's mine. I'm gonna pass it to Brother Tut. What was your first significant interaction with technology?
Well, for me, I remember the old school. I think it was the dang. What was it called? It was the big old Sega Genesis handheld. Uh, it was the Dreamcast. I forgot what it was. I was so excited, but I also had a Game Boy. So just I've been a gamer for the longest, bro. So I just thought it was cool that they were able to figure out how to make it portable. And I thought I was the shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, I got the new thing, you know what I'm saying? And just to look where we're at now, about 10 years later, uh, having these Zoom calls, I would have just never thought. Because prior to this, it was beepers. That was like the coolest thing. Then they started coming out with all this handheld stuff. So, yeah, that was my introduction. I'm still very interested into games. As you can see, how we're moving towards the metaverse. A lot of people are even more interested in games. So yeah, I think that's dope. And I will pass it on to Mama Mia.
Man, y'all don't want to pass it to me. I'm hecka old. The thing, cell phones, right? I remember the first giant cell phones that you carried around on, and only like the really rich people had them. And so, yeah, that was like my first big technology change, I would say. And I'm gonna pass
Okay.
it on to, stop messing with me. Xavier.
Hi, it's Xavier. Sorry. My dad is like a computer geek, so I'm like always been into all the new technologies and stuff. For me, it's everything. Like I just want to not be beat by a computer. But my thing was the Wii's. The being able to act like you really playing a game, but you're not really playing it.
Okay. Who you want to pass it to?
Um, I can't even see everybody right now. Let me see. Hop back to slow phone. Zarina.
All right, so my first experience with technology was a computer. I think I was in first grade. Like the game systems like Nintendo and Game Boy. But my first experience with a computer, I had a computer class and they taught us how to type when I was in the first grade. So yeah, that was my first experience with technology. And I'm gonna pass it to Greg. Hello?
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't think Greg's on this. I don't think Greg's on this call.
Oh,
Yeah.
who all on here? Did y'all
Uh,
heard me though, right?
yeah,
Oh,
we
we
heard
heard
you.
everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was trying to see if I was muted or not.
Maybe pass it to Cal.
Cal, I'm gonna pass it to Cal.
Okay. Muted my video. All right, so mine was I would say personally was with a broken radio because with my brother, he was a little bully when we was younger. He was 2 years older than me, so he always played the game, always we had turns. Like my partner, but radio tried to fix it, but it was real intriguing for me to see the components inside of a radio that make it work. So I started being fascinated with breaking stuff down and learning all the individual things that make up an item that people want. So that was really fascinating to me. And I will pass it to Natalia.
Thank you. It's Natalie. My first experience with
Sorry,
technology,
Natalie.
it's all good. Was really my first experience with like gender discrimination inside my family. I think late 70s, early 80s, we had this big box computer, if you remember those things. And my father kept wanting to help my brother and teaching him how to use it. And I'm like, why am I not getting time on this thing? And so, yeah, that just revealed some things. And I will pass it on to Joyous.
So when I was born, there was like already a lot of technology. So I would have to say my best experience or relationship to it would probably be YouTube, because I was just amazed at how much content was on there from like one source. I don't know who else hasn't gone.
Nathaniel, have you gone already?
No, I have not. The question is the best experience you had with technology, right?
Or the most memorable?
The most memorable? Well, I
Yeah.
just recently had one recently. The startup cars, the people with the push buttons to start their cars up, that just wowed me right now. My dad got one. And it's like, wow, you know, that's how far technology has gone, That recently just happened, he pressing his button and he's starting his car from far away. And that's blowing my mind right now. But and also too Napster and iTunes and downloading music onto those little joysticks, not joysticks. It's just you could have 1,000 songs onto one device. That right there, that did it back in the day. But yeah, that's one of the experiences that I have. I believe
Yeah.
I'm probably the last person, so I don't think I could pass it on to anybody else.
Yeah, no, that's it. So I asked that question so it could put our minds in to the grand scheme of things. And Jackson Rising, they talked about just being aware of this new the fourth industrial revolution, right? And basically talking about the different times in which technology shifted how we interacted and money was made and new billionaires are created. And when we had like the railroad happen, you got folks like Andrew Carnegie and Rockefellers who made a whole bunch of money off of that technology, and shipping things. And of course, it had been around before them, but they were able to really utilize it in ways based on advances that had happened. And so we are now entering into a new phase. Thank you, Brother Tuck, for mentioning, the crypto, the Web 3.0. We moving into these new technologies, and they're having new effects. And a lot of us, and thank you for sharing your story, Natalie, about being discriminated against in your own family, because that actually probably set you back some. I don't know for sure, but I can imagine how these experiences can make you like, maybe push back on certain technologies because of trauma. You know what I mean? And people in our communities are very adverse to technology because we've been traumatized by the judicial system and the medical system and the political system. And whenever these things advance, we tend to be left behind. And so I think for me, I get excited about these new technologies because they're an opportunity for us to even the playing field a little bit. And so, the fourth industrial revolution applies to cooperatives because we could take it upon ourselves to utilize these new technologies, the 3D printers, the excuse me, the Web 3.0s, the YouTubes, the Facebook algorithms that allow you to promote yourself without having to go through the middleman of the past. Different things like that. Being able to use websites where they can hold your merchandise, drop shipping. Where you make an idea and then somebody buys it and then it's shipped out of somewhere else and to them, rather you having to hold all of this merchandise. So all of these things, you know, help business in different ways. And so we got to be aware of them so we don't get left in the past because it's opening up new waves of income for a lot of people. So just keep that in mind. We in 2022, and we're reading about the 70s, the 50s, and the 1800s, and just like how much they didn't have, and they still got an amazing amount of things done. If we keep that same intensity and strategy and apply that to what we have now, we have access to so much information, and so let's not get lost in the sauce and realize that we are the source of the creativity. Just because you see it done one way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Um, NFTs have so much more applicability than just a picture that is randomized and looks different, and trading cards type modalities. They could be access to shows, they can be memberships, they can be lifetime coupons, they can be experiences. There's so many things. If and just a side note, I watch a lot of Gary Vee, so he talks about NFTs a lot and the different applications of them. So I've been learning a lot from him. And also I've learned from people like or organizations like Boston Umoja. I would love to get them in the book club, but they have a system in which they have a public fund in which people contribute to, and then that fund also influences politicians, as well as it influences the dollar to circulate because any business that's aligned with that fund can pass on savings to their customers, and then everyone who's involved in the fund has access to voting for where the funds go. And I thought that was a very interesting model because they even had a digital dollar that represented, and they might be in the phases of building that up, but they have the idea on their website. And so I think that's something that all different cooperatives can look at and learn from. Like, how can we build ecosystems that operate and build on this technology that we have? So 246 is what we're starting from on the book, Collective Courage.
Hey, can y'all like send me like a chapter or two?
Yes,
Because
yes,
I still don't have. I'm sorry, I still don't have the book.
it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, we could work on
I'm
that,
sorry,
Z.
I'm on a Zoom call.
We
What's
could
that?
work on that, Z.
Okay. Unless I mean, is active listening cool too?
Of course, of course.
Okay, I'm gonna just active listen.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, 246. At the top, the BSCP Cooperative Buying Club is dissolved and checks are dispersed to members. So that's one thing that'll come up in these different examples, is that every organization was not successful. Every organization did, oh, let me put you on blast, Brother Tut, so they can see what you're doing. 1 second, y'all. Okay. All right. So Z, if you want to follow along, Brother Tut has the book
Okay, cool.
on the Zoom.
All right.
All right. So yeah, everything isn't gonna be um, a win, a long-term win. You know, I learned that some of the longest businesses that exist in the world exist in Japan. They have businesses that have been around for hundreds of years, and I thought that was interesting. We talk about when you talk about long term versus short term, and what is short term? It's all kind of subjective, right? Like in the terms of technology, short term or long term is 5 years, because in 5 years the technology can be here and gone. You know, MySpace wasn't that long ago, and flip phones wasn't that long ago. You know, I think iPhone is starting to do flip phones now. You know, so it's just interesting to think about how things cycle and go in cycles. So all cooperatives are not going to last for super long, but when they do dissolve, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be total annihilation or total destruction. Meaning, in this case, the BSCP dissolved, but they were still able to pay off the people that were involved. Like, they might have lost all their profits, but what they initially invested into the business, they were still able to split up amongst themselves. So I think that's a win still, in a way, right? At least you came out even. You made an impact, and then you were able to dissolve it and not be at a loss. Ideally, I don't know the details, but I think that's what they're getting at. Morningside Heights Consumers Cooperative opens in New York City and operates for more than 10 years. 1956, the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation, which started as a community-based polytechnic high school, is founded in the Basque community of northern Spain by Father Jose Maria Arizmendiatria. Sorry if I mispronounce his name. Italian is not my first language. It becomes a model for network cooperative economic development centered around worker cooperatives in an ethnic minority community. So big shout out to the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation. They created the 7 cooperative principles. You can Google it. It's a very common list of foundational ideas that cooperatives can be based on. Um, it's their blueprint for what a cooperative is based on, and I think it's a good place to start. And what we'll be talking about them a lot as well. 1964, Southern Consumers Cooperative is founded in Louisiana. 1966, the Black Panther Party, founded in Oakland, California, organizes survival programs pending political revolution. that include free breakfast and education programs for children and the provision of free shoes, clothing, food, healthcare, plumbing repair, pest control, and transportation for the aged. The Panthers also sponsor cooperative housing and cooperative bakeries. Man, when we talk about cooperative work, you can't really leave out the Panthers. Now, they weren't officially a cooperative, from my understanding, but they operated as such. They fed people. They had cooperative ideals. You know, some would say socialist, right? They definitely borrowed from, the Red Book, socialist and communist thought, but not just for the sake of being different or anti-capitalism. I feel like they chose that path because they really understood the value of community and building from the bottom up. And I know there's a lot of nuance to the Black Panthers, but at the end of the day, they did operate cooperatively and they cared about the least of them, right? They learned the law so they could go up to the police and quote the law when the police were out of hand. And a lot of things were changed because of them. They made a big impact. So Umoja, right, unity, they definitely exemplified that and made ripples around the world. And so big love to the Black Panther Party. All right, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit to 247 down to 1970. The Paul Lawrence Dunbar Apartments, originally a housing cooperative built for blacks in Harlem, New York, is designated a landmark site. Um, Shout out to Huey P. Newton. We have a street named after him in West Oakland, right? So we should also memorialize our own collective thought leaders and influencers. The Southern Cooperative um, Development Program and FSC staff merge. Thank you, Natalie, for posting the 10 co-op Mondrian principles. I said 7. I think I've seen them both, 7 and 10. But the point is, learn what they are. Go view them yourself. I think it'll be very helpful for anyone learning this field of thought and wanting to apply it. All right, so 1980, the U.S. government launches an 18-month investigation of the FSC on charges of misuse of federal funds, reducing the organization's ability to raise money and cover its expenses. In 1981, the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama announces that it will not prosecute FSC, finding no evidence of wrongdoing. And we'll learn about that too. Like, the government will run plays to slow you down, to really run roadblocks against progress if it's not in the interest of whatever their interests are at the moment. Who's to say? But they will play games with you. So uh, let's keep moving. 1985, the FSC merges with the Land Emergency Fund to become the Federation of Southern Cooperative Land Assistance Fund, the only networked regional organization of African American cooperatives and development centers in the United States. It is still in operation today. Um, and I like to say this, I'm not anti-government. I feel like what I've been grown to understand is that absolute power corrupts, and so I don't find it necessary to be anti-government, but I do find it necessary to be skeptical and to be proactive um, when it comes to speaking up for your own communities and when you see injustice, being in opposition to that. And our government, the American government, uh, hasn't had their hands clean in a lot of different instances, from the founding of this country to how it's treated minorities. And so, yeah, I don't like to be negative, right? I don't feel like that's healthy, but I do think we should have a healthy amount of skepticism. All right, so let's go to 248. 1990, Ocean Hill Brownsville Tenants Association forms the Central Building Fedayeen Construction Company, a worker cooperative with 15 worker owners. 1992, Food from the Hood, a student-led co-op at Crenshaw High in Los Angeles, starts a school garden, gives produce to the poor, sells at a farmer's market, and begins a multi-year project to sell salad dressing made from produce grown in the garden. By 2003, 77 members have graduated and gone on to college using money earned from working in the co-op. Ocean Hill Brownsville Tenants Association forms the worker cooperative Ocean Hill Brownsville Security Company. About 20% of the 42 workers are former prison inmates or substance abusers. So shout out to that example of the Crenshaw High School folks utilizing an urban garden from farm to table, right? And imagine if this knowledge of working together in cooperatives was put into the schools, more intentionally, along with understanding these new technologies, right? Shout out to LeBron. He just um, enlisted some folks in the blockchain world to teach Web3 to his youth. So imagine if we had folks of that status, understanding the impact of cooperative work and influencing youth in that way and giving them, more encouragement to work together and to change their communities. I think we'd see a good change in this country. Let's see, skip down to 1999. Emma's Eco Clean, a house cleaning cooperative in Redwood City, California, begins a project of women's action to gain economic security. The Ella Jo Baker Intentional Community Cooperative is established in Washington, D.C. to save affordable housing in response to gentrification. Members move into 6 houses in Columbia Heights in 2003. It remains in operation today. All right, and then down to 249, 2009. Mandela Foods Cooperative, a worker community-owned co-op, opens in West Oakland, California as part of a strategy to address food insufficiency and insecurity, right, in the neighborhood. We love Mandela Grocery over here. If you haven't been, please support Mandela Grocery Co-op. And then 2012, Nation of Islam members in Houston, Texas launched the OST McGregor Food Cooperative in the 3rd Ward of the city. And shout out to the Nation of Islam. Definitely another example of cooperative work. So this week, we just been going over different examples of cooperative work. Squashing the narrative that black people don't work together. We have so many examples against that. And also you'll find that we're squashing the narrative that, we can't work with others. There's many examples of alliances built across color lines because it's all about establishing common need. So pick out your favorites, learn more about them. Some of my favorites are the Black Panthers, Mandela Foods Cooperative, the Crenshaw High School example, the Southern cooperatives. So much change happened in the South. The South, just like in hip hop, they kind of on top right now. They definitely were on top in terms of pushing a lot of civil change in many ways. So shout out to that. And a lot of us in the Bay came from the South. My family from Louisiana and Arkansas, right? So I'm sure a lot of us have similar stories due to the Great Black Migration. So appreciate y'all for building with us. This week, like I said, we just going through the timeline. Next week, we're going to be getting into more specific examples. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about where your ideas are going after learning this information. Okay, and Natalie, you said what pages for next week? I will actually post those on the Instagram and then also send them out via email to all those who I've already contacted through email. So Natalie, I believe I have your information. If not, I'll hit you on Instagram or one of the two. All right. So thank y'all for joining us, and we'll talk Monday. Same black time, same black channel. Peace.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Adios.